Okay, see, sickle cell disease, no, mujamu yare. It's an inherited blood disorder, and it's actually the most common inherited blood disorder globally. Now, according to WHO, no, about 120 million people have sickle cell disease.
Can somebody transfer sickle cell disease spiritually?
No.
Big no.
Big no. Sickle cell disease is an inherited blood disorder. It's a genetic disease.
Sickle cell disease, or cure? Do we have a cure for sickle cell disease, doctor? So being a dear, another what diagnose will be do was sickle cell. Otum quiet test will confirm it will be or SS another ES. Emma or suffer bompire man or your deliverance or your fasting. And at a point in time, no test bioma or change from a BR SS another ES to AA.
I mean, I've heard about that, but I've not seen it in practice. I'm yet to see a patient ni genotype no assess. I believe in miracles and I believe in prayers and all of that, but sickle cell disease, it's a genetic condition, and it's the lab it's one big thing. And you'll be our sickle cell na oyeketwa. Only body. There are more sickle cell, more body pass. I can't share why you will never know. Because of medical advancements, no. In collab, brea or more yareno or mutumini echo drew or mupenimreso. And the oldest patients Ghana, meaning say all sickle cell disease, no, the 100 years.
Inti, I want you to show us the difference between the blood grouping O positive na nkofu normally or kedo emi ma check my blood me today and that the genotype and difference so na be no owo dame oye two things simu na or scientific name bi so apotro che na ye muzini ye.
Okay, into genotypes and is a genetic makeup of your hemoglobin. Now blood group no a blood type.
Dr. Akwaba.
And yeah.
So these are your audience. Tell them who Dr. Mary is.
Okay, so Dr. Mary Anson. I'm the co-founder and CEO of the International Sickle Cell Center. Yeah.
Well, so Doctor, you made mention of co-founder of the Sickle Cell Center, meaning had it not been you, and can you need any sickle cell center in Ghana?
Oh, Iscc, which is the International Sickle Cell Center, no, is just one of the numerous sickle cell non-profits in Ghana. But your vision, only your goal, no, is not to make impact only in Ghana, but in other African countries and even globally. Inti from Yedina Kasanpo Utimi say International Sickle Cell Center. Inti we have the vision of building centers of excellence across Ghana and other parts of the world.
All right, beautiful said. Doctor, now Obi Bisa, what's a sickle cell disease?
Okay, inti sickle cell disease no. Mujamu yare. It's an inherited blood disorder, and it's actually the most common inherited blood disorder globally. Now, according to WHO, no, about 120 million people have sickle cell disease. Now, the thing is, the highest global burden, no, a part of the world, sub-Saharan Africa. Now, Nigeria, na the highest number of people more sickle cell disease. Other parts of the world are more sickle cell disease, including South Asia, especially India, the Middle East, the Caribbeans, South and Central America, the Mediterranean, to say countries like Italy, Turkey, Greece, etc. Into sickle cell disease, no, and a disease for black men only. It's a global public health issue and a global disease obia to be. Na every human being no ye wo moja wo yemu na moja na ye wo yemu no ye wo bibia ye friend hemoglobin na sa hemoglobin no eno na emma ye moja no ni red color because iron wo mo a any oxygen from a ewo environment ni mo e binding ena emma red blood cells no ye moja no ni red color na hemoglobin we obia nya baako efri ni maame ho ena onya baako so efri ni papa ho. Now when you inherit normal in hemoglobin from both parents no and I say even from one parent no so normal hemoglobin your friend hemoglobin A but say who inherit abnormal hemoglobin say baako and I say mienu a any type of abnormal hemoglobin, there were so many types. The most common types of abnormal hemoglobins are in Ghana and any other parts of West Africa. Hemoglobin S, hemoglobin C, other types here hemoglobin D, hemoglobin E, and even hemoglobin beta thalassemia. Beta thalassemia are more common in India, but there are some Ghanaians are almost beta thalassemia traits where and I say hemoglobin. Inti say me say me AS. What it means is that I inherited hemoglobin A. Every me mami and I say me papa ho. Ena hemoglobin S. Every me mami and I say papa. In my situation, me mami ye AA. Inti because oye AA no time bia A no de bema. Inti me fa ni A ni baako. Ena me papa ye AS. Inti ono nso me fa ni S no instead of ni A no. Inti me be ye AS. Trese me ye carrier of the sickle cell trait because of the S. S no na ema ne sickle cell. Into obia or S no into sickle cell trait. AS a sickle cell trait. AC and sickle cell trait. It's not known as a sickle cell trait. It's just an abnormal hemoglobin. Senya meka no. Into AC, AD, AE, AF, AO, A beta thalassemia. They are all carrier individuals. Now for you to give birth to a child or sickle cell disease, no, you need at least one parent to have at least one S. Inti say amia AS no. Se mishia will be na son pakroni ye ACA. What it means is that ebetumia wakola or sickle cell disease. Se akolano during sexual intercourse no. Bema no sperm na oyi no se ne sperm no se bema na ye AC na se sperm na oyi no eye C sperm C hemoglobin ni na ewo so a je se be akola no bewo that C hemoglobin no and I mean so kosua na me yi imma won say ye kosua every month ye menstruation is kosua na me menstruating no se eye S kosua genes na ewo mo no eye S a tre se akola no obeye SC. Se me kunu no eye AS and I say bema menene share no ono so ye AS ti say me a na say sperm no eye S na me so me egg no eye S a akola no obenya SS sickle cell disease SS inti Ghana hano no SS ni SC no and really the most common type of sickle cell disease ewa Ghana ha any other parts of sub-Saharan Africa. Now, there were other types, it's in because of the abnormal hemoglobins. Into your S beta thalassemia, more common in India, but your Ghanaians are almost S beta thalassemia, your SD Punjab, your SO Arab. Into there are different types of sickle cell disease.
Beautiful. Doctor, as a king, yes, we are learning a lot from what you're sharing with us. But there is a particular side that before you go next question, I'm be able to throw more light on it. When it comes to being in a besia wushia, to MMA understanding, and I repatch they say being ye AS, and let's say ushia besio wo ESA, or you likely they will be to me afraba or ye SS. Another will be afraba or ye AA. Another will be afraba or ye AS.
Yeah.
More bad than bianon. Chances of them getting an SS child then or ye high.
Yeah.
Say tuni na wo ye ASR.
Yeah.
Okay. In this case, in so be or AS or wara, ideally, a partner no here.
In terms of sickle cell prevention, no. Se obi AS na se on pese obewu akola or sickle cell disease ye will be a friend with genetic counseling. Into the most important thing is say a genetic counselor nyankopa adom se si Ghana no we have some genetic counselors when we school, and at the moment no we can contact them for genetic counseling. Into genetic counseling genetic counselor obehwe mu results no say oba no ye AS be manin so ye AS. Now once the results are reliable and I here say obema mo lab akoye new labs, and we can work with the labs now I started genetic counseling session no. Now genetic counseling session no obe what sickle cell diseases, complications, any nyama etumidiba. Now I try more preventive strategies and nyama mobile DSC to prevent sickle cell disease and avoid giving birth to akola or sickle cell disease. Into one of the preventive strategies no, your friend no. IVF PGT. IVF here in vitro fertilization. PGT here pre-implantation genetic testing. Inti me breaking it down mwati say. Inti IVF no se ne na yati dane fertility treatment. I'm crofwa omo hwehwe imma no. Omo koye eboa won ema won ma omo nya imma a medical treatment ye wo wiase we nyina. And so many children have been born through IVF. Usually couples almost struggle with fertility, infertile couples. It be one reason or the other, one health condition inti obana na se bema na so mumie no. There's a problem with almost sperm ni omo egg no anaso bako for inti unhia moa with medical care through IVF. Senebe ya mobenya moa moma. Now, when it comes to pre-implantation genetic testing, no, and no send any bro for casanatre, no, it means that before implantation, pre-implantation, and implantation, no, say obani bema share through normal natural sex, se bema ni release sperm na, share kusiano, ewa fallopian tube nimo, na fertilization, okay. Inti embryo na anase zygote na ebe form no ebe travel through the fallopian tube na beto uterus ni mo chese oba na wodie ni mo inti se to uterus ni mo ase seed a wodi ahye anwea mo. So the embryo implants into the lining of the uterus, into the uterine way na implantia honum na start to say enyin na enyin kakra as the weeks and months go by na be yakola na ya wono inti pre-implantation trese ansana embryo no ebeto o maami na wodi animu no ye behwe embryo no e wo lab ye wo special lab IVF lab no na ya ye be fa some small cells into embryos no wo cells nyama bebre round bebre into cell wo millions of cells na se we kakra bi pa ha embryo no enye ne hwe into ye wo specialist omo ye skilled embryologist omo be yi cells ne kakra no mo de akọ lab a ye friend PGT lab. Into the rest of the embryo no ningna ebe share fridge mo into IVF no IVF process ne ye nia ye befa oba no ni eggs ni bema ni sperm no na ya ka bomu e wo IVF lab instead say oba ni bema ni be share naturally no ombe kusiani sperm ni be share ye be ye ni wo IVF lab into ye ni wo IVF lab na embryo na be form na ya cells ni kakra na they are called PGT lab. That's the pre-implantation genetic testing lab. Into PGT lab no eho na yebehwe say embryo A does it have sickle cell disease or not? embryo B, does it have sickle cell disease or not? Into any embryo only sickle cell disease, no, either say or your AA. Say parents near AS. Just say embryo no can be AA or AS or SS. Into any embryo or your AA and I say or your AS no, just say it's safe to transfer it into the mother's womb, the uterus no. Say implantation will take place and hopefully she will get pregnant. Na akolane ingi wona wa. But if the embryo is AS no, usually no, that embryo is not transferred into the mother's uterus. So that's how a couple are AS no. Omi to me awo oma omumani na ye either AA and I say AS need sickle cell disease. Na any other embryos are need sickle cell disease no, it is stored in a fridge, a friend of cryopreservation. Into cryopreservation place na almost store no, say we are ready, say we'll be having more children na ya transfer any other embryo to you or embryos for you to have your child or children. Another preventive strategy a prenatal diagnosis. And no say in Crawford, for instance, woman worry and they don't want to do IVF PGT, and I say almost can do IVF PGT because IVF PGT no, it's expensive, so they don't want to do IVF PGT and they go for prenatal diagnosis. So the woman gets pregnant into early in pregnancy, like 10th or 11th week of pregnancy. No, you bet to me small sample from placenta. No,
okay.
Your friend chorionic villus sampling.
Okay.
Inti enono a invasive test. Just say the ultrasound, the use ultrasound na ya use some tube na ya tit sample ni kakra every placenta no. And na say you bet to me a use to be it can go as far as 20 weeks and no amniocentesis intinsuo na akolani ewa akolani huno ye bet to me the ultrasound still ultrasounded guided na ye the needle na ya twinsuo ni kakra inti either chorionic villus sampling and as amniocentesis near the Becker lab na ya say akolani was sickle cell and also only sickle cell disease. So was sickle cell mubehun genetic counselor na wa church mo even with the results mubehun genetic counselor over explaining results no atremo inti that's when more couples no you can decide whether to terminate the pregnancy or keep the pregnancy. Okay. That one no, it's your decision. No one makes for all the preventive strategies, no IVF, PGT, prenatal, no one makes the decision for you. It's your decision. But usually when a couple is going for preventive strategies because they don't want to have a child with sickle cell disease. But there are couples when they go for the prenatal diagnosis, they realize that my child has sickle cell disease, but they've bonded with the baby, their growing baby and the pregnancy. Usually with IVF, PGT, no, it's easier because couple no, you can't bond with your sperm, right? And your egg, so that bonding and emotional connection is not as strong as prenatal diagnosis. So some couples find it difficult to terminate an affected child, a child with sickle cell disease. But when we find out early, that's the golden opportunity for us, and that's what we want to do. Inti say a test be my friend in newborn screening. I who said, does the child really have sickle cell disease? In Sakolano or sickle cell disease, then we refer the child to a sickle cell clinic. So right from day one, no, we start taking care of the child to avoid the serious complications of sickle cell disease. Other preventive options include adoption. Mobe decide say mofra and you go and adopt a child, and now say you stay child free. Into the couple no, you want to stay together but you won't have children at all and you won't adopt, and now say you can choose to separate and go in for a partner only AS and I say AC, a partner, you're going for a partner who is AA. And he said, we are AS, you can choose to avoid Yamaning na ya kano, and then just go for a partner who is AA, and then you leave your partner who is AS. And see, these are all some of the preventive strategies that are available that can be used for sickle cell prevention.
Doctor is a boy dream one some baby and I as a pa and see maffa do be one natural day, meaning if you want to prevent the sickle cell disease, options all when you be IVF
PGT.
It's on a term to the basic person understanding benin the bisianon, they wouldn't have any sexual intercourse.
No, into your ban, you be man injections, any endro, or no be man injections, ne ewofie, any edra or befa. Ebema kusiana ewo ni ovaries ni any bebre into when it multiplies and we give some drug HCG ema kusiani mature when it matures na failure ya koye egg collection so we go and collect the eggs a small surgical procedure be enye way bia into ye kusiana na ye dia share some petri dish mo some round small dish bimo na bema no either say ye bema no a masturbate and say
masturbating ni chemi onyem baze for the zone say
masturbation ye bibia bema ni be ya ebema ni ho aba.
Into you as a doctor what are some of the processes I wasn't man call for my as a man?
Oh no, so with IVF clinic no, either say IVF clinic no, they have a room, a special room that the man is given his privacy. He can do that in, or any hotel close to the IVF lab because we need fresh sample.
Okay. But then when they be or has sex or a dream and all that.
Yes,
and so
yes.
The man has to get into the mood before.
Yes. So sometimes the woman has to help the man. The wife is sometimes allowed to go into the room to help the man, and there are people that they don't want to masturbate and all. Into there are some collection nyama types. It's not a condom, but nyama yebetumia collecting in because masturbation is the number one option because we don't want any foreign substance by the sperm it be affecting the quality of the sperm in any way. So masturbation is but there are other options to assess and even collect the sperm if masturbation is not preferred by the couple or the man.
I see. Well, doctor, in some of the church inti za yenya intiasia yenya na chede asa now say e wo part no ye AS na wo su ye AS dam option in wo
inyo
and the second option is either my hand chede bingin in a bisia no wo botumi ehia na wa afa yefunin but odu stage bia wo bokwa akohwe the pregnancy na wa afa oye papa another me friend de onye sickle cell wo be yedam testing na we hu dey afra no ba onye SS
and that's prenatal diagnosis
and so won hu ne dam na and a chede se won pe so ye SS na won pe a and a chede wo botu ye funu egwa na dey they will terminate the pregnancy but ono ye ho our choice but ono na feel there if anyi pa fa ya wo feel there sabi obi ntumi mfanyin san na on the stage bi na okoye checks no hu there or SSR we yi egu nti mono so munye ready the mobile advice in pan on decision that I sat the obe keeper na there obeyi senego ye nipa nankasa ne personal decision.
Yeah,
right?
into genetic counselor no ne wo bekasa. Sesiano sickle cell disease no abeni bebre any be any medical advancements. Among crofo a omo sickle cell is the same as ahuntutuo, anase sasabro, anase inwewe. So that's sickle cell disease in the local dialect. Now sickle cell disease no sesiano because of medical advancements no nkola bebre a omo yare no omo tumini ekodru omo penimre so. And the oldest patients ewo Ghana minimum say all sickle cell disease no the 100 years.
Wow.
Oh, and there are other people are minimum in their 80s, some are in their 90s, some are in their 70s, 60s. But one more omunin edru sa that old age no omundo, and that's where we want medicine and science to get to the stage because even with incola say omunin edru adulthood first medical advancements they didn't exist. The advancements now it wasn't allowing them to live to that age. And we believe say as more research is being done and all no, we would have even more people living to their 80s, 90s and 100s. So say genetic counseling but then we also have a lot of people dying in their young age and not as either as children and not say as adults because of the complications and a lack of access to the needed care. And that's the big issue that we are dealing with now, especially in many parts of sub-Saharan Africa, including Ghana. There are challenges which exist, okay? Into the genetic counselor no would counsel you and let you know. Namwankasa more decision. If you ask a doctor, we would always tell you that every life is precious. Do you get me? And sickle cell is very difficult to tell whether on pakronobenya the very severe symptoms of sickle cell disease or less severe symptoms of sickle cell disease. And when you ask doctors, we'll tell you but when it comes to genetic counselor, no, a genetic counselor can never and will never tell you what to do. They will only give you the options. More decisions because there's a principle called the principle of non-directiveness in genetic counseling. So they don't direct you as to what to do, and it's part of the ethics of genetic counseling. Yes, sir. One way is that what it's called? Yeah. So they just have to go by the ethics of genetic counseling. Yeah.
Okay, Doctor, beautiful. And some days I actually mupa I mean sisi ankofo waritasi. But as a crosser ankofo will be saying there, how does sickle cell affect nipedrian? Or you then in nipedrian or affect sickle cell? How does it affect the body?
Okay, I started by saying sickle cell disease it's an inherited blood disorder. Will be red blood cells, which I spoke about, or I mentioned earlier, red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets. Into sickle cell disease, no, affective red blood cells, no. Now red blood cells, no, usually no, normal red blood cells are round to say donut. And I say they are just round. But sickle red blood cells in sickle cell disease, you say on pakrono awoba pa, and I say showed in the pa, and I say in tuntum kanu na sonya malaria, and I say wa ye jumadina bre or strenuous exercise. These are called triggers of sickle cell crisis. Indeed, any of these triggers, and there are other triggers. When the person is exposed to any of them, red blood cells, no hemoglobin S, na red blood cell. Once I spoke about hemoglobin, and I saw hemoglobin, they are tiny molecules in the red blood cell. So imagine a balloon. Imagine a balloon na wafa anua from the beach and I would gumo. Into anua na balloon ni muno enu na hemoglobin, the hemoglobin molecules. Into obia hemoglobin, like I said, can be A, which is normal, or S or C, which is abnormal. Into obia hemoglobin S mienuno se awo pair the anua no the hemoglobin in the red blood cells no ning na a forming long rigid chains. and na omo cross link omo they stick to one another inside the balloon, inside the hemoglobin. In Tebanisana, omo forming long chains, and imagine long chains in a balloon. So it will poke the balloon.
Yeah.
But with red blood cells, no, what it does is that the long region chains, no, it bends the red blood cell. So bending the red blood cell, no, na mana it is the shape of kwedu.
Yeah.
Okay. Or sickle, which is sickle cell, and that's how the name sickle is a farming tool, which is shaped like kwedu, and I say half moon. So that's how we have sickle cell disease. Okay, it affects the red blood cells. No, as soon as it affects the red blood cells, no, these sickle shaped red blood cells, no, some features into ding ding ding, and our red blood cells are. Normal red blood cells, no, are very flexible. Into some for baby blood vessel more ketwa crowd. They're able to meander their way through the blood vessel. But sickle red blood cells, no, they are very rigid and stiff. And then they also stick to one another. So imagine a rigid and stiff red blood cell for small space. Only that's malleably onto me meander the way through the tiny blood vessel. And a sticky surface is now our red blood cells. And so sickle red blood cells no one more yes, they stick to one another. In Tebanisana now forming clumps of red blood cells. I say if I say Binko are blocking some space into a tarisana, a ball of another clumps of sticky red blood cells now. A drew small blood vessel now. So they block that blood vessel. As soon as they block that blood vessel, no red blood cells, no, the main function is a hemoglobin emit oxygen from the lungs and they core other body tissues. Now some oxygen no, is what keeps our tissues and our body and every part of us alive. Into once blood doesn't go there, penno, there's lack of oxygen and nutrients, and the body responds with pain because there's no oxygen. And aside pain, it leads to so many other complications of sickle cell disease from head to toe.
Doc, there is one thing as I echo in crossing a for now. A binom Sunday. Wabo our friend and our friend in UK, but ne auntie be obey Bugarian, ne sister, ne grandma be obey Bugarian. No, ye be phone or the sickle cell and dash any moon. Is it possible for one to transfer these things spiritually? Even though they are treated scientifically, but me pede sidubio so that the ordinary person or retain will win understanding. Or yada soon and had spiritually. And I believe you're a Christian too, so you believe in spirituality. And yes, science in your science in your mass. Can somebody transfer sickle cell disease spiritually?
No.
Big no.
Big no. Sickle cell disease is an inherited blood disorder. It's a genetic disease. Into when you're free, woman, no papa. So into a woman was sickle cell disease crampo. Nasa wo papa ni genotype AA. Say none of the children will be born with sickle cell disease. Into enya dia ye disane enya dia is not contagious. Enya dia obi betumi ahwe na odiama. It's not a spiritual sickle cell disease is not a spiritual condition. It is a genetic disease. Yeah.
Well, mensan susidubio. So being a dia another what diagnosed will be do was sickle cell. Otum quiet test won't confirm it all will be or SS another ES. Emma or suffer bompire man or your deliverance or your fasting, and at a point in time no quack a test bioma or change from a BR SS another ES to AE.
I mean, I've heard about that. but I've not seen it in practice. I'm yet to see a patient ni genotype no as so I believe in miracles and I believe in prayers and all of that, but senior sickle cell disease, it's a genetic condition, and it's the lab it's one big thing because so me were patients and perform more sickle cell disease or make say oh me were SS no or more test my MI school and I say I'm AS me were university no another test and no put there now almost say I'm AA and but me I was having pains in my joints and went to me call hospital and on mommy test no and I test nature say SS means say and I say SC and I'm like it depends on the lab you go to. The lab give you accurate results and I also know it depends on the kind of test that was done. Maybe only sickling test. Maybe the person who did the sickling test is not even that experienced. So and then it also depends on the protocols that the lab uses. Just getting it is very important to go to a very good lab to get reliable results. And to send yam phone near to me any iPhone near to me no. Sometimes no when people are denying and they are not sure of their results and all no, we see that go for what we call HPLC. And that's an isoelectric focusing, but especially HPLC, it's very sensitive to even the minutest type of abnormal hemoglobin. To say hemoglobin SC, D, Niamekayeno. In the HPLC, no, there are labs in Ghana on between Atrimoja, no they are called outside the country, no more running. Now I should say, and HPLC is high performance liquid chromatography for those who want the full name, no, and it's able to let you know. Sorry. It's supposed to let you know if you truly have sickle cell disease or not. So after you've done the HPLC, even in the Bible, when Jesus heals people, he says, go and show yourself to the priest. Yeah. So we just need to have very credible and reliable results from reliable labs. Then once you have it, no doctor, in medicine, we see miracles. Patients that we don't expect them to walk or come out of a coma or anything, they do come out, okay? And see, it's not something, as a Christian, it's not something that God cannot do. But please have a reliable results using a highly sensitive type of test. Don't use the not usual ones like the sickling and especially if you want to confirm HB electrophoresis can sometimes, and it's sometimes used for confirmation depending on financial strength. But then especially when you want to target a miracle, please go in for HPLC. Yeah.
All right. Doc, even test and say if you have the means or either it could be before first in a way name who they are another credible place my way name who they're testing or a solid before I make credit to some miracle another BBD. All right. And I was say, Doctor, I think up with Juma Pa, but I'll give you a short time to take a break. We'll come back now, but we'll talk about if there is a cure for sickle cell. Okay, it was here for Parkour Rich in Higher Parkour Rich Studios, and we are having a beautiful conversation about sickle cell disease. Now, me was Dr. Mary. Yes, now Dr. Watcher and Sima, but the question at CCA in Kwafu were beside there. Sickle cell disease or cure. Do we have a cure for sickle cell disease, Doctor?
Sickle cell disease, no, it's been with us for over 100 years. It was identified, first seen in medical literature, that was in 1910 by scientist very friend James Herrick. Now since then, a lot of Nyama discoveries about sickle cell disease until somewhere in 1984, and an 8-year-old or leukemia, any sickle cell disease. BBI a friend of bone marrow transplant. Now bone marrow transplantation it's a type of hematopoietic stem cell transplant. Meaning say dini sukakra. By your types of hematopoietic stem cell transplantation, bone marrow transplantation is the most common type. Into bone marrow transplantation, what it means is that bone marrow no what don't pay no bibi one my friend stem cells. Into stem cells no was say yemfa na yenhwe obi so ni mojamu ni bone na yenhwe say ni stem cells no doesn't match wo stem cells na once are compatible no just say you transfuse on chronic stem cells they share umojanumu for it to go to your bone marrow. I bet to me start to say producing normal red blood cells. It will cure you of sickle cell disease no. Now usually no the best match no wa unya siblings, but the problem over the years ni say a lot of people find it difficult say ombenya sibling na no stem cells and matching. Another challenge so far has been the cost of bone marrow transplantation, because in the US, for instance, no, the average cost is about $150,000 to like $250,000 bone marrow transplantation. Into the first way, like I said, no, it's say finding a match, a sibling match, either sibling and I say unrelated person or be on your relative. And I say the cost. Into bone marrow transplantation traditionally and up till now no is the main cure for sickle cell disease. Into 1984 no, that 8-year-old child no with leukemia no bone marrow transplantation was done, and interestingly it cured her of her sickle cell disease as well. So after that no bone marrow transplantation no you start to say use suma in more sickle cell disease. Unfortunately no, after over 100 years, no, so many years, no, about only 1,200 people globally. And now my use of bone marrow transplantation. But saying I make earlier, no, about 120 million people globally, and I say millions of people globally. It was sickle cell disease. No. Into that tells us especially in Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, omun cure no. Because of cost, because of not finding sibling match for India, Sikano. That's the main barrier in assessing bone marrow transplantation. But recently, Nubibi Wahwa friend gene therapy. It's revolutionary. Bone marrow transplantation so when you obi and stem cells no with a hard drain and you can't assess bone marrow transplantation. But with gene therapy no with stem cells umojamu na free don't pay na they are called factory and I said lab na yes some gene editing, because sickle cell no a problem with the genes so it's edited gene no na mo problem na gene mo they will instruct the gene to start producing normal red blood cells. Na they will transfuse it back into, for both bone marrow and gene therapy they have to clear your body of all the abnormal stem cells no and no chemotherapy ni bamo into obia obeye bone marrow transplantation and I say gene therapy no ni tibeye santo to say obia or cancer or go through chemotherapy. But after the whole way, your hair will grow back. But then it comes with all the side effects chemotherapy comes with, from having challenges with fertility to the biggest challenge is BBI graft versus host disease. Just say graft stem cells na yedi share woman no body ni betumi rejecting no. Your body is the host. The stem cells are the foreign, like the graft. Into disease, no, just say it fights it and it comes with so many complications. Into that's it. When it comes to a cure for sickle cell disease, bone marrow transplantation and gene editing. And currently in gene editing, we have two main types which are being used. And the UK, for instance, we are getting some progress because on their NHS, Ghana National Health Insurance, so say and almost say every year 50 people UK will have access to gene therapy. Into one more, they meet or more eligibility criteria. once you meet it, and you have very severe form of sickle cell disease, you'll be able to access it for free. Now, gene therapy is very expensive. It's about 1.5 million pounds, and in the US, up to like $3 million. It's very, very expensive. Into how many Ghanaians can afford it?
We can't.
We can't. So that's why more research is needed, so that we look for cost-effective, accessible, and like gene therapy or a cure for sickle cell disease that the average Ghanaian, the average Nigerian, the average Congolese can afford and access. The average Indian, because it's also a very big problem in India. Yeah.
Well, doctor, and from what Dr. reckon actually, obviously, somewhere Africa, with a level of amounts now, when them scanning weekend, so I am away in the home. But doctor, question of course, my pede may be saying a day. You see, this whole thing and or start to fit in from them. Now, from one command another, the conversation we are having, and what are the best intervention methods or either you use here afraba, like and more than a year to another steps are you start now you're diagnosing the young day afraba be your SSR. What are some of the things or the obutuma bua afrene?
Into the first thing I was saying when you say was saying for afraba nko sickle cell clinic.
Okay, not just a regular hospital.
Not just a regular clinic, not just a regular hospital. Or more call you better line ya call for review a general doctor akolano, or it can even be a specialist, but preferably like we want the child to go to a sickle cell clinic. That's the baseline. Clinic sickle cell clinic. Because sickle cell clinic healthcare professionals now they have been trained and educated and taught about sickle cell management with Nihun, because up till now local clinics be in Ghana, and there are still doctors omu nim say nkola omnase obia or sickle cell disease and he say woman a drawer iron woman inti say omu say on pakroninya anemia no mo manu totima omu manu a draw to say zincofa and I say ferroglobin nina iron womu sickle cell no anemia, and it's not caused from iron deficiency anemia. Into there are things doctors running sickle cell clinics nim the knowledge nim right. Yes, so once I will call sickle cell clinic, they can take care of the child and take care of the child well. That's the number one thing. And then akolani betu some medications. So once na akolani SS especially a drobi or why a friend will HU Oko clinic ubeti HU the longer word near hydroxyurea. Into hydroxyurea a very, very effective drug. Etumi boa body red blood cells on which mean hemoglobin F. Now hemoglobin F you will be our brofocasam you can say it will high oxygen affinity. Into to me bind it to more oxygen. Into that allows the red blood cells to transport oxygen to the body tissues and into to me see acquiring the complications of sickle cell disease. That's what hydroxyurea does. It's a very, very helpful drug. Also in children, maybe we'll have a friendly penicillin V. Because sickle cell disease affecting body organs and same kind usually in children by even as young as age 5 almost plain usually it's literally it's damaged by sickle cell disease. Okay, in the end the main function is to help the body fight infections. In the penicillin V, what it does is because children immune system is not as strong and all and the spleen is also affected it makes them prone to infections, especially in pneumococcal infections. In the penicillin V fights against these these infections, so to help the child survive and thrive. And baby so why a friend folic acid, because sickle cell disease no it affects vitamin red blood cells and the breakdown and all no into you have low red blood cells, and it leads to chronic anemia as well. Now folic acid no, it helps the body to produce more red blood cells. And we also give multivitamins because there is vitamin deficiency. And Ghana Hanum no, we know say a lot of our diets no, though we talk about balanced diet and all no, still no say oh sika and I na kola no betumi di fruits ni vegetables ni balanced diet, but won't cry beer. Sometimes no, it's a challenge, and sometimes no, we even forget. But the child taking the multivitamins every day no, it helps to supplement, because research actually said there are a lot of vitamin deficiencies in Nkrofo or more sickle cell disease as compared to the normal person. Normal in quotes, I'm not saying that they are not normal, but as compared to beer only sickle cell disease into the multivitamins and where I demand it helps to supplement for any vitamin deficiency. But then we cannot make do without a balanced diet. Into another thing, especially say a colana as individual no will be a friend no stunted growth and I said delayed growth into one says and you be our sickle cell na or ketwa only body. There are more sickle cell more body pass. I can't share why you will never know. And now omuni question so yellow. Omuni jaundice. Into stunted growth, no, it's a complication, but it's not seen in everyone with sickle cell disease. But then because of the vitamin deficiency and the red blood cells nice and to me supplying enough oxygen and nutrients to the body, no, it's affecting growth, no, and Emma and Krofobimo and your body and to me, especially children. Until we will refer you to a dietitian. Or better will send you a colano bedi and once a colano pet a gianini way cry a dietitian, you will refer to a dietitian as well. Or better how to feed the child, what to feed the child to help with the normal growth into nyama way, and then ask them when there is a specific complication or anything no, it's also managed nyama way na yema in Nkrofo or more sickle cell disease. But another important thing na or clinics they say yema for reviews, and depending on how you are doing no, a bit me review no I like the following week, and I said the next 2 weeks, and I said the next month. And I say, come and see us in the next 2 months or in the next 3 months. And even for children in schools, no, if they have exams, let's say in the next 4 months or something, and they are healthy, no, we can say that after school vacates in the next 4 months, come and see us. These are the medications you need to take it. But whenever, aside for review days, no, you are not well, no, come and see us, and we would take care of you. And the main goal and aim of the reviews no is to make sure say we are able to pick up any complication before it sets in or it gets worse. Into a complication then right there and then we are able to stop it. And the review also helps prevent even other complications from setting in the first place. Into you'll be in Nkrofo to say Iscc, for instance, one of the biggest complications BBI friend is sickle cell retinopathy. It affected the eye no. So when you are coming for review and you complain of that, you are having visual problems or anything, and I say over and say that I have some small pain in my hip, we'll be thinking of avascular necrosis of the hip joint, a complication of the hip joint, it can lead to disability. You start to limp and you won't walk well, you need a walking aid and all. So the review is very important, a very important part of sickle cell management in the hospital. It must be at a sickle cell clinic because that's where healthcare professionals have been trained and they are knowledgeable to take care of you, to help you thrive with sickle cell disease.
Doctor, you mentioned something about growth. Now, growth, I think your direction was more on size of the person. How about height? Does it affect the height of?
Yes, growth is size and height.
Yeah.
And but there are people who have sickle cell disease and are tall. Okay, even with, you can also have delayed puberty. Okay, so in color ladies are almost sickle cell disease or menses no a chance na a besha se or monophone a chance na eba. Likewise, guys, no delayed puberty. These are all it all falls under the growth spectrum, no height, weight, and all. Yeah, but there are people with sickle cell disease who are tall, but omunye kese, omunye very slim, skinny, and there are those with sickle cell disease when him say wait ye or any power yetia and yes sickle cell into no yetia on your free mammy and papa ho on your free mammy and papa ho, but yeah, on to me nyekese. And there are people with sickle cell disease are almost super, they don't have any growth challenges. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that clarification there. So I noticed my son is not tall like the mom, but I now know where it's coming from.
Of course.
But anyway, one more thing also people would like to know is that, I mean, one is supposed to enjoy life. You understand, and you realize being a sickle celler, mostly the person is advised not to do alcohol, not to smoke, not to even, sleep in air condition and all that. Obi away our sickle cell disease. Mommy, how can this person enjoy life?
Oh, there are people with sickle cell disease who enjoy life. In fact, I have friends who have sickle cell disease and they enjoy life so much so that I get upset. Because whilst I am behind my desk working hard, working on sickle cell disease, they'll call me and say, Mary, I'm like, just look at that. You're enjoying life and I'm here struggling, suffering for you. And like, it's just what I've chosen to do. So that's fine. So people with sickle cell disease enjoy life. They can live their life to the fullest. It doesn't stop them and it shouldn't stop them, but then there are precautions that must be taken. Even for those of us that are in sickle cell disease, and there are precautions that we have to take when we are enjoying life. Otherwise we may cut our life short. You can't just go playing in the water anyhow, especially even if you know how to swim. You may not know how to swim in the ocean, and it will take you away. So there are precautions that need to be taken. The precautions are one more sickle cell disease they need to take is different from one more sickle cell disease. And even amongst people on more sickle cell disease, there are certain precautions that one person may have to take that the other do not need to take because they don't have that complication. It really depends on the individual, but alcohol is not. I don't call alcohol enjoying life. I don't call smoking. It's not good for anyone, whether they have sickle cell disease or not. Alcohol, you can take alcohol, but then you have to limit the amount of alcohol that you take, even for people without sickle cell disease. For people with sickle cell disease, you can't say stay away from alcohol because it leads to dehydration. Now, dehydration, once is one of the triggers of sickle cell disease. And every when you're crisis, not walk to hospital, and we don't know what can happen from there that may lead to death. So alcohol, you have to avoid it. Smoking, you have to avoid it. There is even BBI friend is second-hand smoking. Second-hand first, second-hand smoking. You are always in an environment and microphone smoking. You are taking in even more smoke than on pakrona or smoking, and it's harmful to your health. And non red blood cells is sickle, so you have to avoid smoking, be it you smoking directly or second-hand smoking. And with swimming, Ghana, unfortunately, you need heated pools because Africa is very warm, so there is no need for heated pools. But outside the country, no more heated pools because of the winter and all. So you can swim in heated pools, okay? But once it's the normal pool, we advise don't swim in it because it's cold. You come out, the wind blowing over your body and all that it's going to trigger a sickle cell crisis. So there are things that people with sickle cell disease are not they are advised against and asked not to do, but then they can still enjoy life, and they do enjoy life. I know people who enjoy life, and they ask me why are you not enjoying life? Mary, chill, go out small, do this. So please, they enjoy life.
But then what is it about this cold stuff? Because repeatedly, I mean, when they are having conversation about sickle cell, I want you to retouch on that. What is it about cold environment? Because for all that, there are people living in Europe and all that who have sickle cell disease and all that.
Yeah, so cold is one of the triggers of sickle cell disease, and it causes the red blood cells, the shape of the red blood cells to change when the weather becomes very cold. And also when the weather is cold, you are not even thirsty. And because you are not thirsty, you become dehydrated without you knowing. So, and when the red blood, anything that causes the red blood cells to change shape, it leads to it can lead to a crisis. Very hot weather can also lead to a crisis where you are sweating a lot, you are urinating a lot, the weather is just hot, so you are uncomfortable, because stress can also lead to crisis. Okay, and so very cold weather, very hot weather, they can both cause a sickle cell crisis, and that's why we talk about it in relation to sickle cell disease.
The reason I'm asking this is because of the education that they give to certain parents that, oh, don't let your child sleep in an air conditioned or very cold environment. Now you can see some of these kids sleeping and they are sweating because they've been told not to sleep in cold environments or where there is a lot of air and all that. So how do we balance the environments as at how they feel?
Yes, so to be honest, we don't want the child sweating and being so uncomfortable, because the child sweating and being uncomfortable can make them stress. The heat and all, it can all be a trigger for a sickle cell crisis, which we want to avoid. We don't want the child shivering in an air conditioned space and all. So we need the environment, the temperature to be like normal room temperature, where it's kind of like comfortable. It's not cold and it's not warm. So everyone is able to have a very good night's sleep. And also with the windows, for instance, if a child is sleeping, especially those in senior high school or even those at home, if they are sleeping by open windows, you know that the air becomes very chilly at night. So that cold air that is blowing over their body, you are asleep, you don't know, but you have red blood cells flowing through your veins and your vessels. So as the cold air is blowing over you, it changes the shape of your red blood cells. Then you wake up with pain in your joints or a part of your body. So we say close the window sills, but don't sleep in a very hot. So you must know how to like the degree to open your window, okay, so that you are not, it doesn't lead to you having a crisis, like cold air, so much cold air coming in that will lead to a crisis. And it's also not very warm. So it's same with the fans. Actually, the fan, if you know that when you sleep under the fan and it's so high, it causes, then don't do that. If 5 is too high and it can lead to a crisis, you need to know your body what is too much for you. If 5 is too much, you have to move it to 3. There are people with sickle cell disease that when they put on the fan and like it's at the highest, like 5, nothing happens to them. And there are those that even 4, they will fall ill. So you need to know what works for you. But for parents, you have to make those decisions for your child, and you have to observe your child that, no, this fan is too much for Kweku, it's too much for Abna, let me reduce it. The AC is just too cold in here, let me make it room temperature, like normal temperature, that it's not going to affect him in any way. And then duvets, blankets, when the weather is very cold, you cover yourself with them. But sometimes in the duvet, it gets very warm. Don't be under the duvet and be sweating. because we said cold weather is, if you're warm, go for a lighter cloth or covering so that you are comfortable and you don't stress yourself to get a crisis.
Okay, so now let me share my experience. So when we were given education about this air conditioning stuff, my wife's understanding was just about air condition, okay? And so the air condition was a no-no for her.
Okay.
But then she'll put the fan on at the highest speed she wants to. So I want to know that you can actually put on the air condition, but then maybe take it to a temperature that wouldn't have the room so cold and chilly as it is.
Yeah, because if your son is working in a company, especially banks, the AC has to be on.
Yeah.
So usually there is workplace, there are things that we tell employers in making space and making room for people with sickle cell disease. So employers, employees, if your friend or your colleague has sickle cell disease, you have to watch the temperature. Make sure that it's room temperature, because that cold temperature at 16 can trigger a crisis, and it affects the productivity of the company and all of that, and affects the health of your colleague. So it should just be in a room temperature that is comfortable for everyone. And then for people with sickle cell disease, it's very advisable, if you know that you are working in a space that has AC and all, to go with a jacket and all that things, dress in such a way that it covers you up and it protects your health. So instead of wearing a short skirt, if you know that you are working in a place that the temperature, the AC is on all the time, it's best to preferable to wear trousers. But if you feel like the weather is so hot and the skirt is what works for you, that's also fine. But then the temperature should just be regulated to suit you, so that you don't find yourself in trouble from being exposed to too much cold.
I guess then anybody that has sickle cell disease working in a cold store is a no-no.
Oh yeah. It's I had a sickle cell patient that we were supporting, and her madam, should I say, she was working in a store, and she decided to move to the cold store business, and she asked the sickle cell patient warrior to join her, and she said, no, I have sickle cell disease. I can't be in the fridge putting my hand on the fish and everything all the time. So yes, there are some jobs which are no cold, because you definitely fall sick. Working in a cold store, working in a washing bay, carrying. I sometimes wonder how many Kaya women have sickle cell disease. How many truck pushers?
I'll share a story with you. When I went to do my internship in a radio station, because I'm a broadcast technician, I was sent into the transmission room, which has a lot of transmitters there. So we have 2.5 horsepower, is 2 of that. So just imagine being under just one AC, 2.5 horsepower, 16, how it feels like, and now being in 2.
Wow.
And then the laws there is that the air conditioning there is meant for the machines.
Yeah.
So you are working under the machines, you have to find ways to protect yourself. And sometimes, trust me, in that space, it doesn't matter the amount of jackets or stuff you put on. We actually put a bottle of water just somewhere around the room, and it becomes very cold. And so I'm just wondering, somebody in that condition working around that environment.
I mean, people with sickle cell disease in foreign countries that have winter and summer, the 4 seasons, they are able to survive and thrive. It's all about dressing. Unfortunately, thankfully, we can have them either at the force Cantonment, for instance, or buy them in the more posh places like the malls and all those nice posh stores. So you go, if you are in such a condition, it's best to wear thermal clothing where it's keeping you very warm, and you can choose to pack yourself with so many, from stockings, thermal stockings to thermal vest to all of those, and then the kind of jackets that you wear. You can even choose to wear winter jackets, and they can all be purchased at Cantamanto or the Accra Mall, West Hill malls, all those lines, and posh malls and all that. So it depends on your
money power.
Yes, and where you buy, but you just dress up accordingly to the environment you find yourself, especially when you're passionate about your job and that's the only place that you think you can grow and you can learn. Then you have to find your way. So you ask yourself, if I were in Canada, how would I live, how would I survive? So you dress appropriately. When you are getting out, you can choose, even outside the country, when you cover yourself so well and the weather starts to change, you start to take off some of the things. So you dress in such a way that you can remove some of the things. If you have to go to a washroom and take off like extra underwear or thermal wear, that's fine. But anything that will keep you healthy and make you thrive, that should be the main focus.
Very well noticed. Like, for example, my boy, personally, I don't sleep in clothes. I'm in zero. And so I think he
learned that from you.
He wanted to take inspiration from that, and he will always, like, when you cover him with cloth, he will take it away, throw it away. But gradually, I mean, we've been able to walk him through the journey of having some pajamas that covers him well and all that. So guys, if you know this your situation, you have to go with the directions of Dr. Mary. And there's one more thing I also want to throw light on. You see, when the sickle cell disease patients, or let's say people who have it, are young, it's much easier to control. There are certain people, when they get into certain age, for me as a father, I know what the pain the child is going through, so I'll make sure you take your drugs, you do all that you have to do. But then when they start getting to certain age, they feel like, I'm the guy, I'm the boy. I need to go chill up and all that, and do whatever they want to do. And then it will start becoming a problem on your neck. You don't know what to do. So these are some of the experiences personally I have, and I think if people can learn from that, it will help them.
I mean, the Bible says, train up the child in the way he should go.
But I have an exception to that, because you see, kids are not like device with manual. Sometimes you can be the best parent in the world, but you have the most stubborn child in this world. You wouldn't know how good of a parent you are. Yeah, so we just need to pray so that God will help us.
With sickle cell disease, from what I've heard so far and what I know, there are children that, because they had newborn screening or they were diagnosed at a very early age, they've not really experienced the crisis, what it means to have very severe crisis. So it's like, it sounds like Latin to them. They don't know what you are talking about. They experience the pain sometimes, but it's not very severe. They get the medications, they go to the hospital, they are treated, they are fine. Until they get so comfortable, especially in their teenage years, then one serious crisis hits. Then as soon as it hits, it becomes a wake-up call. So for some people, it becomes a wake-up call to them, and like, no, I don't want to go through this again, or this is a complication that I now have. I'm not going to do that to myself again. Then they start to take very good care of themselves. There are others who are also very prim and proper, and personally, I have a very close friend who is that prim and proper. She has sickle cell disease, and so that's her personality. So she doesn't have all those severe crises and all. Moreover, she has the less severe form of sickle cell disease anyways, which is the Iscc, which is also a plus for her. So it depends on the individual, but generally when a child is taught at an early age, and as they are getting old, they are growing older, they are told what to do, they understand what not to do and why they must not do it. It stays with them, and it's easier to comply with. And so that's why I brought in the train up the child in the way he should grow and go, and when he grows he'll not depart from it. It's not a given. Even with Christianity, it's not a given, but it really helps when they are aware of their diagnosis, the do's and the don'ts, and they live it that way. It helps them thrive. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, doctor, for so much. The enlightenment is too much, but we'll take all. Should we take a break, or we can move on to the genotype?
Oh yeah, we can.
All right. So guys, we are still here with Dr. Mary, and then Yara can look at me in the face. Once a young man feels like I have enough money, I'm grown up, I need to settle down, I need to get married, a woman, once she sees I have boobs, I have curves and all that, I want to get married, they get into a relationship, they start loving each other without checking if they are fit enough for each other. Now, doctor is here to educate us on some of the steps we should take once we get into relationship. We are talking about genotype. Doctor, what is it about genotype, and how come it's breaking a lot of relationships?
Oh, that's an interesting question. So, genotype is the genetic makeup of your red blood cells. Okay, the hemoglobin. It helps that's what we mean by genotype. And usually, like I mentioned earlier, my genotype or my sickle cell status in a layman's language term is AS. And another person's genotype is AA. So we have different types of genotypes. And then the abnormal genotype is when someone has sickle cell disease, like SS or SC and all. Genotype.
Doc, just a question before you move on. So I would like the ordinary viewer, the difference between the regular blood group, also me O positive, me A this, me. I don't know, a video came online and a woman was saying in there, wabe checking a blood na was O positive. Then Kobotuma, a member of parliament, I don't know if you came across that video.
No.
Yes. So can you imagine though what to catch will be there? No blood group here O positive, Kobotuma, a member of parliament, because she has what it takes to lead people.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And then she believed it. And see, I want you to show us the difference between the blood grouping O positive now and normally, or could we check my blood me today, and that the genotype and difference. So no over dame or ye two things now or scientific name bisa potro chehena ye muzini ye.
Okay, into genotypes and is the genetic makeup of your hemoglobin. Now blood group ewo blood type. The type of moja ewo wumu. Into yewo A, yewo B, ena yewo O, A B O.
Okay.
Ena plus, a bit me a plus and I say minus. And then I resource factor and a antigen. Into say a bit me A positive, a bit me B negative, a bit me AB positive, a bit me O negative. Into these are the types of blood group, and is different from genotype, which is the genetic makeup of hemoglobin, our red blood cells. Into me say me genotype AS. Genotype is usually it's always two. Unya baako free wo mama ho, na unya baako free wo papa ho. With blood group it can be just one. A positive, and I say negative. B, and I say AB, and I say O negative. AB no together, but you need genotype B AB. Into genotype the blood group you must always think of these three alphabets A, B and O. ABO. And it can either be a combination of like A and B, and I say just A or just B or just O. These are the blood groups. AB, any of them, ABO. But genotype, no. Yeah, well, A. But A, no, it's not alone. It's always either AA, and I say AS,
Yes.
and I say AC, and I say A beta thalassemia, and I say AD or any other type of A something. But it's always two. Genotype is always two. AA or Nyamikaino. And genotype can also be SS, SC, SD, SF, S beta thalassemia. Into these are also genotype. We have normal genotype, which is the very normal genotype AA. No. The AS is also normal, but you have one normal hemoglobin, which is the A, and then you have one abnormal hemoglobin, which is the S or the C or the beta thalassemia, etc. Into that's genotype. It's one of them. Either there is always two, and it's not like the ABO, which is the blood group. We talks about the blood type. Now, blood group, the importance is for blood transfusion. Say, we need to know blood group are compatible with genotype. No compatibility, and I say when we talk about the issues with relationships and genotype. No, so be a AS for us. No, especially as Iscc, we do not say you are not compatible. We don't use that word because genetic counseling teaches say you don't tell the couple what to do. You don't tell them whether they are compatible or not. You let them know what sickle cell is, what it can and what it may not do. And then you explain the various preventive strategies. Then the couple will make an informed reproductive choice. Omo decision based on information now the amount. Into with genotype, no, we don't agree and allude to AA, correct? AS plus AS, not good. SS plus SS, very bad. Run away from it, stay away from it. We don't tell people what to do because it's a very complex decision that is taken by the couple. Everyone has their life stories and it's very complex. So according to the ethics of genetic counseling, Sisenamika Eliana is non-directive. So we tell the couple and we offer support to couples no matter the decision that they make. So if the couples decide to separate, we will support them from a clinical psychologist to even pastoral care to anything that they need. And if the couple decide to stay together, we will still support them. If they decide to go for IVF PGT, we'll give them the support for it in terms of directing them, showing them where to get it from, how to go about it. And the IVF PGT team will also take them through all the processes that they need to be fully supported. But you have to pay for it yourself and all. And then prenatal diagnosis, you'll be supported. Adoption, you'll be supported. If you decide to stay child-free, you've received the genetic counseling. If you want to speak to a clinical psychologist or any counselor or anything, you would receive the support that you need, whether you choose to stay together or separate. So that's genetic counseling, and we go by the ethics of genetic counseling.
Okay, so doctor, how you are going by your genetic counseling rules. But in any side then, just as information we are enrich, another you are educating us. So be wo AS. Na say me friend the besia wo AS na bengin wo AS. Na say wo shia the possibility to obotum wa ma wenya SS no ye high.
It's 25%, but 25%, no, we need to know, say, it can affect every single pregnancy. Into your uncrofor, Tisani uncrofor, omutumi wo manning na ye mema, manning na ye mano. there are people that 25% it affects omumanyina. In say nkola 5 ningina was sickle cell disease. Nkola 6 ningina was sickle cell 2 ningina was sickle cell. And there are those 25%. It's in akrofo to minya mani mema no. Omutumi wo imani bi a B was sickle cell, and some do not have sickle cell disease, but they are AS. And until me say my grandmother, she had 7 children. It was only one who had sickle cell disease, so she was fortunate, I would say. But my uncle died.
Oh, okay. In our uncle, your SS.
Oh yeah, SS. But although you can say 50% of Nkolano, but to me I AS no. My grandmother ni manning now we AS.
Wow.
All the others. And my papa ni manu, we are 6 children. 4 of us are AS, and only 2 are AA. Inti if our mothers were we you can't say AS, then what it means is say we could have been, all 4 of us could have been SS. Do you get me? Because it seems like for one reason or the other, the S is very strong in my family.
Yeah, I see. Because Amy personally, as well, mommy, you're surprised in there. Out of my number, 5. Obia and you are never be a SS. I'm the last one. So it got me thinking. And as of now, my mama and my papa cry when you more genotype. My mom is late though. So now it looks like early marriage is now bad. Titino.
Yeah.
Genotype was no factor to consider when they are getting married.
Yeah.
But you realize there, a lot of them had, people who never had SS. That's it.
Oh no, they didn't know.
They didn't know because they were not doing tests. But
and the children were dying. So children with sickle cell disease, before any baby, before age 5, no will say 10 children are 9 out of 10, as high as 9 out of 10 children would have died before age 5.
I'll tell you an interesting story you don't know.
Okay.
When you go to our fishing areas, when they are going to bury the child, they will mark you.
Okay.
So they call them donko or something. So let's say what were a friend before obey penina, that's very age 5 na we were. Let's say you were mother, I will we will be no we. Now maybe the third one, it was a friend and a white trying to come. Like tribal marks people when him.
Yeah.
And then probably maybe that will become an AA or AS child. No say we were. Then they call the person Donko and they attribute it to the tribal marks because they were trying to come.
Yeah.
A friend. So meaning SS has been with us
over 100 years.
Long ago.
Yeah.
But then we were attributing it to spirituality and other things and all that.
Yeah.
And see, Dr. And I think if you're a young girl, you're a young man, and you are about to make a lifetime decision, then one was say, pay their.
I don't mean to cut you. Not just make a lifetime decision. You are about to have sexual intercourse.
Okay, we'll
with
get there.
Someone, because you don't need to make a lifetime decision to give birth to a child with sickle cell disease. Yeah.
Yes. Inti say sebi inyobi robokompum nkitamundi that there is no condom. You should be careful about it. That you know exactly what you are doing. In
fact, there might be condom, but a condom might tear. Or you may not do things right and then she will get pregnant. So it's whether you know her genotype or not. If you don't know her genotype and you don't know yours, or there are people who have children with sickle cell disease, they got tested before they got married or even had sexual intercourse, but unfortunately they didn't go to a reliable lab, so they didn't get the right results, and one thought she was AS, the other thought he was AA.
In problem at Amazon or the bar, then some of the men will resort to DNA thinking that our essay koye wa friend and test in a EE. Moso me test me EE into Abanadena ye by ye SS, meaning that you went to sleep with somebody else
and they don't even understand the genetics of sickle cell disease because once a child is once a mother is AA and you believe that she's AA and you are also AA, then there shouldn't be S from. The SS shouldn't come, but you saw her pregnant. So they alone should tell you that she actually isn't AA. And it should get you thinking that, am I really AA or I'm not truly AA? So I need to go to a test and have, like I said, HPLC. When there is doubt, going for HPLC and not say isoelectric focusing. HPLC, I know say labs like Lancet, Metropolis, Synlab, they can provide you HPLC. And isoelectric focusing, Noguchi can also provide you isoelectric focusing. So these are some places in Ghana I'll be to me access.
So the last thing before we wrap up, I would like to, I'm talking to the young people out there. And when I was secondary school and the university, the teenagers, you see, getting a woman pregnant is not just the problem. But unfortunately, if any obi kenyin son nebia or either AS another SSR it's a probable bariasia a friend about a lot of pain you the parents and you go through a lot of emotional stress and financially. So doctor, I would like you to use this opportunity to address young people that are going to have sex with their partners. Say you was school, I mean, it's your boyfriend or girlfriend. Man, it can be send them, I mean, with genotype. They don't have time to do that. They feel like Charlie, I mean, I guess if now give me some chance to.
And they take the chance as soon as they get it.
You understand? Because the sex the time crowd initiate the sex. Urbano crowd, mostly the girls are not away. Oh, come and visit me. Let's do Netflix and chill. See, do I? Then they go give you. So it's advisable you as a young guy or that the girl that you're going to have that intercourse with and the child that you're going to bring into this world, you're making the right decision. Doctor, please educate us on that bit.
I mean, the first challenge and problem is teenage pregnancy. And we know the impact of teenage pregnancy on the body of young girls because body is not matured to the level stage I bet to me fully accommodate the growing baby. Instead, to me, the problems will break during the childbirth, during the pregnancy. And imagine a 16-year-old girl, 15-year-old girl who was school, and wakwa saying, and saying like all the whole pregnancy thing. You have to go for antenatal and all of that. After all said and done, or sickle cell disease. So you are young, taking care of the child, how to bring the child. That alone is a problem because your parents are still caring for you. And then you add another life to it. And unfortunately, your child has sickle cell disease. That's a double trouble because you may have complications from teenage pregnancy. Then you have a child with sickle cell disease and your child has a severe form. Inti scanning na woman name papa and your family and maybe a guy if he's responsible.
Mostly the guys who
run away. If he's responsible. If he's not responsible, your family is taking care of the child. Taking care of the child in Kwano and that form because they are still taking care of you. Then even people who have money, sickle cell disease can be very draining. It can spoil marriages.
It is not canon, my doctor.
It's
draining.
You see, so clinic, lab tests, sometimes array and all of those things, and you are in school. How do you study? How do your parents have the peace of mind? It's very important. Sometimes you take decisions when it comes to love and genotype, like think about your future, think about your child's future before you say yes to a guy or before you say yes to a lady.
I think we shouldn't even talk about just school, but you have the terrible ones are there. I'm not saying terrible as it's a bad profession, but like apprentice will be or her hairdressing, seamstress, some fitting shop, some electrician and all that, and then sikakra ezibokwe juman, it be very difficult. Then you end up boy esunya mechanic, ekonyin besia or ye hairdresser. Sebi ifie yezen, wuso ufie yezen. Hey, hard body. How you go survive? So please, if you really, really, really want to have sex, well, that is your decision. But make sure that you do all the checks before you come. I mean, when I say come, I mean the come, So, doctor, you can go on.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's important. Prevention is better than cure. Like we started this whole session, it was what Paco, you started with. Prevention is better than cure, and it's what we always drum. Please know your sickle cell status, know your partner's genotype. Make sure that you are getting tested at a very reliable laboratory with reliable results. Then after you've done all of this, if you decide to have unprotected sex, at least you know that the child that you are going to give birth to will not have sickle cell disease, because if your child ends up having the severe form of sickle cell disease, it may change your life forever, and it may also change your child's life, because sometimes the couple may have all the money in the world, but they still cannot protect the child from some of the complications of sickle cell disease, and the child may die. This year, I lost a very dear friend who was a pharmacist from sickle cell disease, and it was very unfortunate. And he left behind very adorable twin boys and a young wife. Okay, and there are people who have also survived with sickle cell disease. You can thrive with it. To our warriors out there, you can thrive with the condition. But then, like I said, please know the management. Go to a sickle cell clinic and receive the needed care. There are things that you also have to do for yourself. The triggers, avoid them. And then for those who are not married or those who are about getting married, please know your status, your genotype, your partner's genotype. Do yourself a favor by paying slightly more, if that's the case, to get reliable results. Seek genetic counseling and do everything in your possible best to prevent sickle cell disease if you can, because prevention, like we said, is better than cure. Remember that the cure, bone marrow transplantation, is about $150,000,
which you don't have,
to $250,000 in the US. Gene therapy is about $3 million in the US and more than £1 million in the UK. We can't afford them for now, but we can afford the preventive strategies. Prevention is better than cure. So this is what I would like to send across to all our viewers and listeners. Thank you.
Very good. Doctor, one more last thing to end with, I beg you. You will be no so what's in there. People that are already in the S league, I put it that way. What you, for example, you meet a lady that you want to start life with, and you go like, "Oh, I'm AS, honestly, or you AA." I don't want anybody with an S in my life. Even AS were rejecting it. The ones that comes with SSD, they don't want to hear you or see you. But it is not a curse.
Yeah.
It is not a crime.
Yeah.
We all have the right to live and, create other people.
Yeah.
Into this world. Just that we have to make sure that we do it the right way.
Mm-hmm.
Doctor, what would be your advice to men and women who've decided that I am AA? So I would never want to be with anybody with S.
I mean, life is very funny. And it's very interesting. Personally, me, that's thing, I've also experienced it because I'm AS.
Yeah.
And you have to treat someone the way you would also want to be treated.
Yeah.
If you do not like someone because they are AS, find a very decent and humane way of communicating it. And I've had people have different communication strategies. I've had someone who ghosted me just because the person found, and the person wasn't talking to me, and I thought I had done something wrong and all that, but it was just because of my genotype, because I was AS and he was AS. And I even brought up the conversation and we found out our genotype, and that was it. Okay, it was a very painful experience because there's someone that you love and you don't know what's going on, and you want to talk about a communication, but the person is not even availing themselves. And I have friends where they said that as soon as they tell the guys that they are AS, I can say, hey, please, I don't want anyone who has even an S. I don't want an S in my this. And then the way that they communicate and they say it, it's very, very painful. And it's not something that, put yourself in the shoes of that person. If it was your child, would you want your child to be treated that way? So we are not saying that go ahead and marry the person. If you don't want to marry the person, that's fine. There are so many fine guys out there and there are fine ladies out there. So definitely the Lord will bring someone their way who would love them like they deserve, and the person is also likely to even be AA. But then let's learn how to speak to people. Let's not especially those with sickle cell disease, is very painful.
Yeah.
How people say, hey, no, she has sickle cell, don't marry her. Meanwhile, the guy is AA and they are going to have a very healthy. So we did a video because of that last year, and you can check it out on, I think, Instagram. Our page is Iscc Ghana, and it's called Love That Stays. We had Ajite Annan acted, and I've forgotten her name, a beautiful, lovely lady. She acted it with Ajite Annan, and Ajite Annan was the one who had sickle cell disease, and she was AA, and they had a beautiful family, okay, and a thriving family, which is so, like, maybe she had married someone who was AA and not like Ajite Annan, maybe her marriage would have broken down, or she wouldn't have the man treat her like the way that in the video Ajite Annan acted it. Okay, so you just can't. Life is funny, like I said. So you don't know if the person with sickle cell disease may give you heaven on earth, or may not give you heaven on earth. You just can't tell based on genotype. Okay, so there are decisions to take, and when you choose, this is another big thing. You need to know about sickle cell disease before you marry someone with sickle cell disease, because the love is there. We also did another video about that, because the man loved his wife and he said, I love you, I'm going to marry you, though you have sickle cell disease. Then when he married her and he saw the way she used to fall ill, he was like, no, I'm not ready for this, I didn't bargain for this. But thankfully, because he loved her, he decided to start studying about sickle cell disease. He did his research, he reached out to us, we educated him, and he was able to love his wife the more and support. And I was like, oh, you really have been going through this, I'm so sorry, what can I do to help and make your life easier? So people with sickle cell disease need supportive partners. And I heard a story where one of the complications of sickle cell disease is known as priapism. It happens in men where they have unprovoked, painful penile erections. So it's unprovoked, it's painful, it's prolonged. So they can have the erection for up to 4 hours or more.
Hey.
And it's very painful. And if it doesn't resolve and is frequent, it can lead to erectile dysfunction. And this erectile dysfunction caused the marriage between the young guy and the lady to break down. And surgery was done to see if something could be done to correct it and all, but it affected the marriage so much so that the girl left and the guy died by suicide.
Oh.
Okay, so if you know that you cannot support your partner, then you need to advise yourself, because that person with sickle cell disease is coming from a very loving family, usually family that cherishes them, loves them, treats them, and everyone wants their dish here to be treated like a dish here. So you need to handle like that partner, your partner, with all the love. So if you want to marry someone with sickle cell disease, I'm very happy about that, especially if your genotype is AA, especially, okay, because we don't want you to have more children with sickle cell disease, because if father has a crisis, child has a crisis. If child has a crisis, the father is so stressed that it also triggers his crisis. We don't want that. Okay, and then the mother will be so stressed if she's the AS. It can cause a lot of havoc. Okay, but before you marry someone with sickle cell disease, please get educated, informed, and you can reach out to us. We can give you all the education that you need so that you can offer the needed support. It's not only with sickle cell disease, other health conditions, the same applies, so that you don't worry someone's child. And for those of us who don't have it, and especially those who are AA, in fact, I need to say this, there are those who think they are AA, but they are not AA.
Yeah.
And they're holding it like a green card. I'm AA, I have the best, I have this. First and foremost, when you have AA, you are more at risk of getting malaria. The AS and the AC protects us from malaria, okay? And that's how it came about. The sickle cell gene and all that. It's because of malaria, that's how it came about. But there are those who have AA and they are not truly AA. And maybe they didn't go to a reliable laboratory, or they are A beta thalassemia. So the kind of test that was done didn't pick it up. So they need the HPLC to pick up their abnormal hemoglobin. So you need to really confirm if you are truly AA. If you are truly AA, which is the case for majority of people, but not for everyone, you need to know how to talk to those who are AS. If you decide that you don't want to marry someone, but if you are AA, you can marry someone with AS or AC, or even someone with sickle cell disease, and none of your children, not even one, will be born with sickle cell disease. So that's what I want to say.
Well done, doctor. And there is another information on the street I will share with you, which some guys with AS, they do. They will deliberately, they know they are AS. They will date you, have all the sexual pleasures with you, and then when they think they've had enough,
they're tired,
they go like, oh, go and check your distant genotype. Once you come and you tell them you are AS, they will use that as an excuse and run away.
Bad.
So that's the word on the streets, which a lot of people don't know.
So bad.
They use that to take advantage of, women who are AS and all that. So please, my lady, before you start,
winning with there. We had a campaign, winning with there. Do you know your genotype?
And then one advice I also give is that, please, if you meet a partner and the person goes like, I am AA, please, if you can afford, both of you should go to a very reliable lab and
confirm,
both of you, so that none of you will have trust issues. You understand? For me, even in my office or my work environment, I am encouraging my staffs to do their genotype test and know their actual status, because the reason is that if they get affected or they come forth with an SS child, it will definitely affect, oh boss, I carry my pikin go hospital, because me myself, I'm going through. So if I'm going through and let's say 5 staffs in my company, they are all going to sickle cell clinic, which when you go, you need more time. You understand? And so please, just don't start just because somebody showed you a paper and said, I am AA. Now it's quite from my experience, a man is looking for a woman that has good moral values, prayerful and supportive and industrious. Now you can have all these checks done, then you realize that the genotype,
it's very painful.
Now you get the genotype, she's AA. Subani nya baku. She dey stress you, and I'll be very honest with you. this is not scientifically proven, but from my own experience, the AS women are quite.
You can't tell.
It's true. I mean,
you can't tell.
No, I'm just saying from experience, and yeah, I mean for yourself, you're an amazing woman. But a man.
Oh, you can't tell.
I can't tell.
My best friend is AA, and she's amazing.
Ah, well.
Yeah.
So please, AA, don't be discriminating among, just be nice to people. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, doctor. We'll end here.
We didn't talk about the message to healthcare professionals.
Yes.
When the parents. So do you want to share your experience?
Okay. So, with this bit, doctor, are you sure you really want me to talk about it?
I mean, we have the message for career, those who are AA, those who are AS.
Doctor, let's keep it short and let's encourage healthcare professionals around the environment that handle SS people that please, these guys are emotionally not okay already. So when you are dealing and working with them, you should have a bigger heart. Because if I should go into details, probably certain people wouldn't even want to go to the hospital at all. And we need people to check up on, their self and all that. And so I would plead with you people, if we have to beg, please be nice to us. Please. Doctor, I don't know if you'd like to add something.
Yeah, so like you were saying, especially when people are given the diagnosis that their child has sickle cell disease or they themselves have sickle cell disease, and they are coming to the sickle cell clinic for the first time, they may not know where to go to, the process and all, and sometimes the busyness of the place may get a healthcare professional very upset. So we need to know that this person coming to the clinic is already kind of like disoriented because of the diagnosis. They are scared, they don't know what to expect. And because we see so many people, sometimes you may see a new person, but you don't know the state of mind they are in and all that. So it's just that's kind of that patience, that empathy, how we speak to them, that can make them feel at home, though it's not home and it's a very foreign environment. So I think the message we want to send across to my colleagues is that personally I work with very lovely healthcare professionals. I volunteer at the Rage Sickle Cell Clinic, and the healthcare professionals there are really nice. The nurses are really nice and very supportive. And I want to give a shout out to Nurse Maud. She's one fantastic nurse at the clinic. Dr. Brew is a fantastic doctor.
Please, she's single.
Maud is not single, please.
Please, if you find any nice single person.
She's not single. I hope she's listening. Yes, so there are the nurses there, Auntie Araba, Dr. Fiado. They are all the doctors. Dr. Fiado is a hematologist. They are lovely people. And I know other lovely healthcare professionals as well, but unfortunately sometimes some of us become very rude sometimes, and we don't have that empathy. And parents bringing their child with sickle cell disease, or someone learning that they have sickle cell disease, they are coming in scared, very concerned, anxious, and also the kind of environment that we create may drive them away. And we never know the complications that is going to bring. Because I went to this place, they didn't treat me well, they didn't speak to me well, they did that to me, so I'm not going there again. And the place that may give them a good reception may not have doctors who are trained in managing their condition. So we will be doing the patients a big disservice. So I think empathy and care and patience for our patients, right from registration day, going in to register, and then coming to the clinic, we speaking to them, taking their vitals, even everything from the very beginning, the start to the end of they seeing a doctor. It must be full of empathy and care.
Well said, doctor. So I would like to end here. I'm sure you'll want to share your social media platforms that if people want to get in contact, they can reach out.
Yeah, so it's International Sickle Cell Center. If you type that in any of the social media platforms, you will be able to see us. But it's Iscc Ghana. So the Ghana is GHANA. So Iscc Ghana. On Instagram, on Facebook, it's International Sickle Cell Center. On LinkedIn, it's International Sickle Cell Center. Likewise, Twitter. And our number is 0599.
Take that part again. He had switched on me, so details.
Okay.
On Instagram.
Okay.
And
So on social media, you can find us on Instagram as Iscc Ghana. The Ghana is GHANA, and on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn is all International Sickle Cell Center, and our contact number is 0599 599 211. For those outside Ghana, you can add the country code is +233 599 599 211. So that's our number, and via email is admin@isccghana.org.